Hey, welcome to Greaser's Garage, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to change your own oil. The items you're going to need to change your own oil are a drain pan, a wrench for your drain bolt, an oil filter wrench, some gloves, a funnel, new oil for your car, a new oil filter, and some shop towels. So you're probably wondering, what kind of oil do I need for my car? Well, a great way you can check for a lot of newer cars is to just open the hood and look at your oil fill cap. This is the oil fill cap for my Hyundai. It says that I need 5W20 oil. Another way you can check is also your owner's manual if you have it. And in the owner's manual, it tells me that I need 3.6 liters, and then it also gives me a temperature range for what kind of oils I can use. So from 0 to 120 degrees Fahrenheit or -20 to 50 degrees Celsius, I can use 10W30 oil. And then it tells me for any range of temperatures, I can use either 5W20 or 5W30 oil. So let's say your oil fill cap doesn't tell you what kind of oil you need and you don't have an owner's manual for your vehicle. Now what do? As a last resort, you can use Google to find out what kind of oil your car takes. Just enter the year, make, and model and ask it what type of oil. I like to check 2 or more forums to make sure the answers are consistent and have the best possible chance of choosing the right oil for my car. So you're probably wondering, Eric, do I buy conventional oil or do I buy synthetic oil? And what I think about that is, basically, if you have a newer car, say like in the 2000s, that kind of area, or maybe late 90s or something like that, then yeah, synthetic's a great option. It holds its viscosity better in cold. As it ages, like as your mileage gets up on the oil, it'll still run fluidly, whereas conventional stuff like this tends to kind of become thicker. There's a lot of benefits to synthetic oils. The only thing I find is when I have a vehicle that's higher mileage, and I don't really know the history of the engine, but I know it's getting up there in its kilometers or miles or whatever your odometer says, that to me it's not really worth it to switch to a synthetic. I change my oil every 5,000 K anyways, so I just buy conventional for my older stuff, such as my 89 Bronco and my 85 Chevy. The Chevy actually needs specific oil because it has a flat tappet cam, but in the case of my Hyundai, yeah, I buy synthetic for that thing. I change it every 6,000 anyways, but I have a better peace of mind buying synthetic oil. Yes, it's a little bit more expensive, but on sale at Canadian Tire you can get it for $30, and it pretty much any brand. Like it's a rolling week thing. If you like Castrol, wait for the Castrol. If you like Mobil 1, wait for the Mobil 1. That's it. Certain vehicles though, if you have a 0W whatever number oil that you need for your vehicle, 0W20, 0W30, whatever that number is, if it's a 0W, you have to use synthetic oil. Also, a lot of GM cars, newer ones, they have to be what's called Dexos compliant. So you can look on certain bottles and it has a little name thing on there that says Dexos, it's green and white, and that's also only a synthetic oil. So if you own a newer Chevy, yes, you're going to need a synthetic oil, and if you have a 0W whatever weight, yes, you will need a synthetic oil. But other than that, if it's older, if it's higher mileage, you bought a used car, you don't really know the history of it. I mean, if it makes you feel better, yeah, go ahead, buy synthetic oil. If you're in cold climates a lot, like up in Canada, where I am, yeah, okay, synthetic oil is a great option. It stays more fluid for longer, it's better for cold starts, it gets around easier, all that fun stuff. But for older stuff with higher mileage, I just go with the cheapo conventional. But don't cheap out on your oil filters. So now that we have all of our tools ready and we know what kind of oil our car takes, let's begin. First order of business to changing oil on your car is getting the front end raised so that you can work underneath it. You can use car ramps that you drive up onto,
Or you can do what we're gonna do and use a hydraulic jack and jack stands. Now, you wanna be safe while doing this. Don't ever go underneath your vehicle with just a hydraulic jack holding it up, because hydraulics have a tendency to fail, and if it fails, your car will fall on you and you can be very injured or possibly die. So only use the jack stands. They are made of solid steel. They will not go anywhere if put on correctly. When lifting your vehicle, you want to look for a strong structural component such as the front suspension or the frame rails to lift your vehicle by. On the Bronco 2 here, we have what's called a twin traction beam front suspension. It actually has pads here and here for you to jack on and lift the vehicle up. The suspension supports the weight of the vehicle, so it's okay to lift by. Likewise, on a straight axle vehicle, such as Green Bastard here, this is the main drivetrain and front suspension component of the truck, so you can lift by it. I like to lift underneath the leaf springs, or at least set my jack stands there, so that I'm not putting all of the weight on this long axle tube and risking bending my axle. Almost all new cars nowadays are what are known as unibody vehicles. Unibody means that it does not have frame rails, the body is the frame. So when jacking up a unibody vehicle, you can look behind the front tires and in front of the rear tires underneath for these little hash cuts or little divots there, signifying that they are safe areas for you to jack on. You can put your jack underneath there, lift the car and set your jack stand on those points, and you can go underneath and do your oil change. Now that we have our vehicle up on jack stand, one last safety precaution we want to take is to just give the vehicle a bit of a shake and make sure everything is settled and nothing's going to move while you're underneath there, and you are completely safe while doing your oil change. So just grab a hold of the front bumper, or you can even grab a hold of the tire if you want, if this is made of plastic and you don't want to bend it or dent it or anything, and just give it a nice hard shake. Make sure nothing's going anywhere. You saw from that, nothing moved. We are completely safe to go underneath the vehicle. Now that you're underneath your vehicle, you're going to want to locate your oil drain plug. Your oil drain plug could be on the side like this Bronco 2. It could be on the bottom. It could be at the rear, or it could be on the front. Once you locate your bolt, you're going to want to set up your drain pan. You're going to want to set up your drain pan so that when you pull this bolt out, all the dirty oil that comes rushing out goes right into the pan and not on the floor of your garage and make a big mess and all that fun stuff. You want to stay nice and neat, nice and clean, and just hit the drain pan with your dirty oil. So now that you've located your oil drain bolt and you have your drain pan set up to catch all the dirty oil, you're going to want to take your wrench and take the bolt out. Now, I like to give it a couple cracks to get it nice and loose. And when it's really loose, put your wrench down and grab it by hand and pull it out. Now that your oil is draining, you're going to want to inspect your drain bolt. Make sure all the threads are nice and clean on it, that the gasket's going to reseal, and if it's not, then replace it. This gasket looks a little bit worn, but I do not have a spare, so we're going to hope that it seals up. Give it a wipe with a towel, clean all the threads out so you don't put anything in the threads and mar them. And once it's pretty much done draining down to a drip like that, you can just put it back in. So when tightening your drain bolt up, you want to make sure to do it up snug, but don't crank it. A lot of pans are made of aluminum. If you crank it too hard, you'll end up stripping the threads, and that's not a good day for anybody. You'll have to retap it, get a new plug, and just a lot of hassle that you don't need to have happen to you. Next, you're going to want to find your oil filter. Your oil filter is usually close to the oil pan somewhere. Newer Chevy Blazers, they're relocated to near the front bumper, but they have a little flap telling you oil filter right here. Most of your oil filters are going to look like this metal case that screws on to a thread and all that. Some newer cars have what are called cartridge filters, and it's literally just the filter material that's inside here with a couple prongs that clip in to a plastic housing, and those are usually accessed from the top of the engine. Next, you're going to want to set up your oil filter wrench around the oil filter and just turn it loose. Now that your oil filter is hand loose, you're going to want to have your drain pan set up underneath it, and then just unscrew it really fast because it'll start leaking. And then set it down. While your oil filter is off, you're going to want to inspect this surface here to make sure that the gasket from your oil filter has not stuck and is trapped on there. If you leave it and put your new oil filter on, it will leak and you will lose oil everywhere and you'll have to redo your entire change. Now you're ready to install your new filter. Make sure your surface is clean, your gasket has some fresh oil on it so it doesn't seize, and just push it up and screw it on. Quick tip for when you're putting your oil filter on, only crank it down as tight as you can by hand. Don't go putting your oil filter wrench on there and just wrenching it as tight as possible. That'll only make it harder to remove next time, and you're not benefiting at all by it. I've only ever installed oil filters by hand. I've never had one leak. Some guys do like to give it a quarter turn with the wrench to seat it better, but like I said, I've never had one leak. They've all been easy to come off, and I've never had any problems. So only tighten it as tight as you can with your hand. Now that we have removed the drain bolt, drained all our old oil, cleaned the drain bolt and reinstalled it, removed our old oil filter, and installed our new oil filter, we're ready to complete your oil change and fill the engine with brand new oil. To fill your engine with oil, you first have to locate the oil fill cap. On V configuration engines, they are usually on one of the valve covers, such as for a V6 or a V8. On 4-cylinder engines, they are usually right on the top. A lot of newer engines have plastic covers with holes on them, right where the oil fill cap is, and then you just remove the cap and open it up. This engine's fill cap is right there, underneath the hoses and all the stuff's in the way, so that's where funnels are going to come in handy. Because they'll allow you to get in the hole and have the cone up here so you don't spill oil all over everything. Now you just want to remove your oil fill cap and install your funnel, and we're ready to put the fresh oil in. Next, you want to take your brand new bottle of oil and remove the cap so that you can pour it into your engine. And just remember to only put in as much oil as your manual says to, or the forms that you find say to put on there. A safe bet is usually to put about 3 liters in, and then you can check your dipstick and see where it's at. This engine takes 5 liters, so it takes one of these jugs exactly. A nice little tip to help you while you're filling your engine with oil is on a lot of the oil bottles, they actually have a gauge on the rear, and it kind of tells you how much oil you have left. It's got a clear strip so you can see the level, and it counts down all the way from 5 quarts to half a quart, or 4.5 liters to half a liter. So yeah, it's pretty nice. So that way if you only need 3.8 liters or something like that, you can look at it and be like, okay, you know, I've dumped 2 liters, I need to go another 1.8 liters, you know? So it's kind of handy to have. It's nice to look at it while you're dumping periodically. Next, you're going to want to find your dipstick and check your oil level. On V configuration engines, you're going to find your dipstick on either the driver's side or passenger side of the engine. And on 4-cylinder engine, you're usually going to find them on the front or on the very top. Hondas use orange dipsticks, but most dipsticks are going to be yellow in color and they'll say engine oil right on them. So you just grab it, pull it out, grab your cloth, and then when you're checking it, give it a wipe for the first time, send her back in, and now this is where you're going to read your levels on the second pull. Now, if you look, it says it's slightly past full. I haven't started the engine yet, so when we start the engine, it should go down because it's going to fill the rest of the oil filter. Okay, now that we filled our engine with oil and checked the dipstick to make sure it's at the correct level, we can start our engine. On your first start, you're just going to want to fire it up and then let it run for about 20 seconds, turn it off, and then check your dipstick again to make sure it's at the right level. So now, as you may or may not be able to see, because the oil comes out really, really clean on this engine all the time, our oil is perfectly at the full level, which means we don't have to add any more oil, and we are almost finished. Okay, all that's left to do now is to take your vehicle off of the jack stand and put it back on the ground. After that, we'll check the oil one more time now that the vehicle is level, and we'll also start it up and check the front of the vehicle for any leaks. No leaks, means she's good. So we'll check our engine oil level one last time. Give it a pull. Send it in. Second pull, read it. And our oil is perfectly at the full line. We don't need to add any, and we don't have too much. So we can send her back in and know that we have done a good job. Okay, so now that you're done your oil change on your vehicle, don't think the job's over. You still have to do something with your old oil. So we're going to put our used oil into an empty oil container to bring back to a recycling depot or somewhere that accepts used oil. If you can't find a recycling depot, sometimes certain auto shops have oil heaters in there. They would love to take your old oil and use it for their heating systems or anything like that. Just do not put this in a drain or on your grass or anything like that. You don't want to contaminate the water supply. Oil is very toxic, and yeah, you just don't want to harm the environment. So make sure you bring it back to your recycling center. Okay guys, that's a wrap on how to change your own oil. I hope you learned a lot. I had a lot of fun making this video for you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And stay tuned for more future videos. Leave comments below. Let me know what you thought, or maybe something that I missed out on possibly. And yeah, let me know what else you guys would like to see done with the vehicles or anything like that. I know the channel really new. I have a lot of stuff I can still do to these things. I have a lot of stuff planned already to do. But feel free to leave suggestions. I'd love to hear your feedback, and thank you for watching.